you're going to find some voices that JP puts out there that absolutely, it's like he's embodying the being that he's voicing. Is there?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant talent. Is it something that you've always kind of done? Voices and things like that?
Yeah. I always did voices. From earliest I can remember, I loved accents and I liked different dialects and stuff like that. And, I'd always, the times I've had to do it for a theater job, and it always scares the shit out of me when I don't know an accent. But I'll just listen. I'll just find people and listen to them and stuff like that. And I'll be able to pick up the little, enough things to get by. And then I'll look at that. All of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, shit, I can do an accurate accent. But like with all the voices, yeah, I've always done voices, I used to, when I was in high school, I used to mimic some of my teachers, and goddamn, my drama coach or whatever the hell he was, he used to get a kick out of it. And that's all you need. That's all you need is someone to laugh at you when you're doing a voice. And he was just like, oh my God, that's like, he loved it. And so I kept on doing it. And yeah, I'm trying to think of the first, the first time I did like a Hulk Hogan voice, I must have been 10 or 11, whenever I first started watching wrestling. And my neighborhood friends and we, you know how it is. You're young, you're a kid, and oh, look, and I like wrestling, so you're going to like wrestling. And I dragged my friends into it, and we held a wrestling show for our moms in the basement of one of my friends' houses, and I was Hulk Hogan. And so I had to do the Hulk Hogan voice. And it's one of the bizarre, it's easy and hard at the same time, the Hulk Hogan voice.
Because there's so much nuance to it. What I notice is, you have the a little bit of that thing that as kids we would use, that California surfer thing.
Right.
But there's also now, and I'm sure it's come to you over years, but there's this little bit of like Florida twang in there, and there's a little Atlanta as well. Mm-hmm.
There's also the kind of, there's a difference between the yelling and screaming, cutting a promo Hulk Hogan, and the Hulk Hogan who's, I'm just sitting around, brother. I'm just
right. The Gawker Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, exactly. The Hulk Hogan being interviewed for a documentary that no one's going to watch,
right, or on the witness stand with a black bandana on in a courtroom.
No, that's Terry Bollea, Jack.
Yeah,
that's not Hulk
brother.
Hogan.
There is a difference, dude, between Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea, brother.
And that's, we use that to our advantage all the time when going through these characters, is the fact that there's this duality in all these wrestlers, and they're such phonies in terms of their personalities.
There is if you listen to our show, I mean, what we've kind of started to call it, well, not started to call, we've been calling it for years, but we started to call it the inner monologue of these people, because just by, we say by chance, but it could be more of a reality than not. Some of the shit that we say, all of a sudden we find out comes to fruition.
Yeah.
And
these people have really done and said things that indicate that these personality traits we threw on them just to be zany and play out just to entertain a notion are actually pretty close to who they actually are when behind closed doors.
There is nothing. Go ahead.
It's almost as if this business, and I say that with quotation marks around it, that they're in, is created for 10-year-old boys.
Perhaps it is. Ooh. But what I wanted to say was, there is not what I think what's most enjoyable about the character voices is that the basic rule, the unwritten rule that I follow with it is that none of them are sane. They're all completely nuts. Like, this is the most psychotic group of individuals that you will ever see. Yes. or ever listened to. And that's kind of where.
And as the weeks play out, not by design, but by chance, we find that there are actually little quirks. There are actually, you can't just say Hulk Hogan is paranoid. He is. But he's actually a different kind of paranoid around one person than another. Vince McMahon is a badgering, domineering boss to the point that he will threaten to murder your family if you don't do exactly what he wants now, because you mean nothing unless you do what I tell you to do. I am the only reason you have any value in this life. You know how most bosses look at their employees in their inner monologue. Exactly. But Vince, he won't stand up to Ludwig Borga, will he? And that all of a sudden we realize that there's a part of Vince that can be frightened, and this just happens on the show. It just because week to week we revisit the same characters, and that's what's so exciting about it to me, is discovering that there are wrinkles to this character that we didn't know. And the key, like you said, is to just take it to its extreme and like magnify a personality trait again about somebody that isn't evident just by observing their public behavior, but you can kind of triangulate that they may very well be like this. Like, you just have to hear one or two little anecdotes about how they behaved when the cameras weren't on, when the microphones weren't on. And pretty soon that's what you run with. That's what you blow up times 30.
There was one moment that really kind of almost freaked me out, actually, because I was like, holy shit, this is something that only we've done. But there was there is a running thing that I don't know where it came up with it, but it's probably one of I think one of the funnier things we've come up with is the idea that, Vince will be talking to somebody and the guy will be trying to, talk back. And then all of a sudden Vince will slap them in the face, just fucking whack them in the face. And anybody, it doesn't matter who it is. We've had him slap Andre the Giant, probably Steve Austin, Randy Savage, like any
Bruno was the first one.
Bruno Sammartino, fucking beat the shit out of him, just whack this proud man,
right. And what are you going to do about it? Exactly. You think you're bigger than Vince, right? You think you're bigger than the boss, but when the boss slaps you in the face, you don't do shit. Right. You bitch.
That's the thing. It kind of cowers once they've been hit, and they succumb to the demands. But then I don't. It was like maybe 2-3 years ago. We get a tweet and a link to a YouTube clip of Vince McMahon backstage hitting one of his wrestlers.
Yeah, slapping AJ across the face. AJ Styles.
Slapping AJ Styles across the face. And I'm like, what the fuck? It was a very, chances are it was a coincidence, but man, that was just surreal for me, because we'd been doing it for about a year, and it was a kind of a pretty recurring thing.
And we feel like we pulled it out of our ass. You know what I mean? Yeah. We don't feel like we keyed off something that's actually happened or that we've actually heard. And there it is.
And then one of his top talents, and he just whacks him in the face, fucking paintbrushes the guy. And, I don't remember my point.
Your point is that life imitates art.
Yes.
Yeah. It's you're able to find personality traits with that are kind of hidden within these people we know, quote unquote, know as characters, right? And all of a sudden they're fleshing out to be true, or at least
you hear once that old time Minnesota-based wrestling promoter Vern Gagne used to try to coerce the talent he would train to be pro wrestlers into giving them a huge percentage of their fee for future bookings, because he trained them and that's how the business works. Well, no, that's just how Vern told you the business works, to see if you'd bite. And according to Ric Flair's book, only Jim Brunzell ever took the deal. But then that grows into Vern, just like, 90%. Like, I'll
take 90% of whatever you make.
Yeah, exactly. I'll book you. I'll help you make money, but I'm taking 90%. And the key is, it's not 60, it's not 55, it's not 30, it's 90. So it has to be.
It's almost everything.
Right. So for the imitations to work, they have to be extreme. They have to be.
Yes.
See, the reason that I bring up the lapsed canon and the voices and all that stuff in terms of of how you're able to engender loyalty and need, and people continue to come back it's empirical data. My wife, my brother will be in the car, and I'll have the show on, and I remember distinctly, my brother's in the car, and JP, you're Vince, and I don't remember exactly what you're going off about, but it was my brother turned to me and he goes, "Is that Vince McMahon?"
Yes.
And look, my brother and I grew up in the same household with a father who was obsessed with professional wrestling until the day he died, as a matter of fact. Get this, just a fun little aside. My dad, the last thing my dad watched on TV was a DVD of Bobby the Brain Heenan and Jim Cornette, a shoot interview.
Wow.
That I got him for Christmas.
That's how I hope to go.
Right. Yeah, no, it was in it just, anyway. My point is that even if they don't know what's going on, my wife is in the car and she'll hear voice and she's enraptured by it. So even folks who aren't fans, it's just this first impression that is unbelievably enrapturing. And
it's these guys are in a world. These guys are in a world. Like, this isn't just people trying to get this isn't just people trying to get the love of their audience and being thirsty in that way. These are people that are giving you a chance to look in to this science experiment they have going on, and you can look or not, but you got to listen very closely if you want to understand. It's like you have to, right.
And JP talks about, you talked about vulnerability earlier, but I think it comes back to that as well, in that I say this a lot on the show, but people can see right through bullshit, man. Like nobody, if you're there and you're doing the voices and it's not genuine, it's just like you're doing the voices because you think fans will like these voices, and it's not because you're trying to pop Jack or whatever, right? You're there, you're in the moment, you're living.
Yeah.
And people sense that.
Again, most of the stuff that happens comes out of just organic inspiration from the moment. I mean, that sounds like such bullshit. I know, but it's totally true. Some of I would say most of our funniest bits have happened. I mean, the one I like to think about is, I mean, I don't know if it's too hard to explain or not, but the Hogan Vince headset confrontation on SummerSlam 2005. Totally not planned. So we just did this bit where Vince and Hogan had an argument, basically, and I was wearing a certain headset that just was awful. It was an awful headset, but it was perfect for this particular device that we could use, and it just created this brawl, basically an altercation that sounded real, right. And nobody had that written down.
No. Well, we didn't even know until we sat down to record that day that you'd be in a position.
We were just doing it.
You had to wear the headset because you were on the road.
Yeah. Right.
You didn't have your equipment with you, right?
I didn't have my equipment with me, so I had to have this thing, and it just happened, and we created this little, again, this on a whim, created this different universe for Hogan in this situation, and it just turned out to ended up with this hilarious moment.
The skit contained a moment where Hogan rips a headset off Vince. Vince is on the headset talking to his production team, just like you would as a television director. And all of a sudden, Hogan rips the headset off, and Boss rips his actual headset off, and you can hear this distant argument and you can hear this tussle. It's exactly how it would sound if two people, if someone came up, somebody ripped the headset off, and of course he ripped the headset off because he's horrified that what's going on in the ring might undercut his market value. And that someone's trying to double cross him, because wrestling is full of that. Because it's fake, everyone is afraid that people are trying to manipulate people to get ahead. Because it's not an actual meritocracy, because the people at the top, the biggest moneymakers, aren't the people who win the most, but rather the people who can win the affection of the fans the most. It's a constant game to get that.
I think it's safe to say that because it's fake, the reality becomes that much scarier.
That's right. You're not equipped to deal with the reality, or you just can't. You can't settle in your mind that people aren't trying to manipulate their way into your payday, into your spot, if you will. But yeah, I mean, that's the only way to do it, and to your point about that kind of enraptured state of kind of, collateral damage for those who listen to the show, people in their family. I remember we were doing a live show